Hello, and welcome to How to Pay for Grad School Before, During, and After. As the title suggests, paying for grad school is something you need to plan for, not only before you start, but it also will need to be managed during graduate school. And lastly, after you've completed your program of study, it's important to know your repayment and possibly loan forgiveness options. This webinar was developed by the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies in conjunction with the Office of Financial Aid at St. Mary's College. It's designed to be an overview of financial aid available to graduate students, but is not intended to replace information or advice provided directly by the Financial Aid Office. My goal in the next 40 minutes is to demonstrate how you can pay for your graduate studies without risking your financial security in the future. Here are some things to consider. Remember, timing is everything. Apply for financial aid at the same time you are applying for admission to your program of study to allow sufficient time for processing. This is usually about 6 to 8 weeks. Be prepared in all aspects of your life: budget, family, health, personal mindset, other life events or obligations. You may need to adjust your lifestyle in terms of spending. You need to realize that no one funding source is going to cover all your costs. So think diversification and give yourself enough time to do the proper research. You almost certainly will need to take out a loan, but there are ways to offset that cost. There are many possible sources for financial aid in addition to federal loans. There are grants, assistantships or fellowships, work-study, scholarships, private loans, employer reimbursement, or veterans or dependents of veterans benefits. And speaking of veterans, St. Mary's is a yellow ribbon school. Unfortunately, international students are not eligible for federal loans and grants. These students should explore home country-based or government-sponsored scholarships, or school-specific scholarships, or private loans, which usually require a U.S. sponsor. There are several different types of assistantships, as you can see from this list. The direct and indirect benefits of an assistantship are fairly obvious. These positions are usually paid in the form of reduced tuition and a stipend for living expenses. Normally, a student will be assigned to a specific department and asked to work a certain number of hours per week or teach a specific number of classes. Besides the experience and funding, the networking opportunities are phenomenal. St. Mary's College offers assistantships or fellowships in the MFA in Creative Writing and the MA in Kinesiology programs. Details can be found on their websites. In terms of the types and sources of scholarships, here are a few. School-specific or program-specific. Here at St. Mary's, the School of Education, the Graduate School of Business, the MFA in Creative Writing, the MA in Kinesiology, and the MFA in Dance all offer partial scholarships for incoming or current students. Details can be found on their program websites. Professional associations and organizations in your field of study may offer scholarships. For example, the California Association of School Counselors or the National Association of School Psychologists. The American Association of University Women is another example. Disadvantaged categories often have scholarships. For example, minorities. There is something called the Hispanic Association of Schools and Colleges. Single mothers, disabled, veterans, women returning to the workforce, These are all examples of disadvantaged categories. I spoke to a student just the other day about scholarships for they were asking if there were scholarships for people with disabilities, and we Googled. Excuse me. We Googled this particular category and did find a whole page of websites that could be visited. So use the web. The SMC library also provides access to databases and catalogs for students interested in finding assistance with grants, scholarships, subsidies, government aid, and loans. And as I said earlier, search the web for scholarships. There's some general categories also: FastWeb, Peterson's, Student Scholarship Search, gradcu.com. I want to mention here that you will receive an email from me tomorrow with all the websites and links that are mentioned in this presentation, so you don't have to worry about trying to copy everything down. Research the scholarship opportunities and note the application deadlines and award timeframes. Remember, you can apply for scholarships, but being awarded one is not a given. So I usually advise students to make sure you've applied for a loan amount sufficient to cover your needs. Then, if you're awarded a scholarship, you can always decline the disbursement for a particular term or reduce the disbursement. Everyone should complete the FAFSA, which stands for Pre-Application for Federal Student Aid. This is in case your financial circumstances change mid-year. Even if you don't intend to take out a loan, some need-based scholarships will require you to complete a FAFSA. A new FAFSA must be submitted at the beginning of every calendar year, but you are funded based on the courses taken during the academic year, which runs July 1st through June 30th. Submitting a FAFSA automatically initiates the loan process. If you decide later that you don't want a loan, then let the financial aid office know. And just a point here, the correct URL to access FAFSA is www.fafsa.ed.gov. There is a FAFSA.com, but this is not the same site. And although they do financial services, they're a financial services company for students, they will charge you to fill out what is already a free form. In addition to the FAFSA, you will ultimately need to go to studentloans.gov to complete the graduate entrance counseling and execute your master promissory note for the direct loan. There are two types of student loans. These are for graduate students: unsubsidized direct and graduate plus, or grad plus. The direct loan maximum is $138,500. That's the lifetime maximum, and there is no maximum for grad plus. You are not eligible for grad plus if you have adverse credit history like a bankruptcy, late payer status, defaulting on a loan, or excessive credit card debt. The same is not true of the direct loan. The direct loan is not based on your credit worthiness. You need to apply only once at the beginning of your program for the direct loan. But if you are accessing a Grad Plus loan, you need to reapply for that every year. As said earlier, you can always decline a disbursement during a specific term or reduce it if you get a scholarship. And remember, if your program offers a Jan term here at St. Mary's, there is no regular disbursement of financial aid at that time. So you need to arrange for those funds to be added to the preceding fall term disbursement or the following spring term disbursement. Talk to the business office directly to make sure they understand your particular situation. Don't assume that they know that you're getting financial aid, and that's why you haven't paid your Jan term tuition. Let them know that if you didn't take care of it in the fall, that you're going to get that money with your spring disbursement, and perhaps you can work something out with them to not have a late fee. But there's no guarantee on that. I just urge you to talk to them. We're a small campus and people are friendly and interested in helping. So here's an example of a $20,500 direct loan repayment. This shows the standard repayment model for a direct loan. This is the default for anyone coming out of deferment. Remember, if you don't indicate otherwise, you will automatically be placed in the standard repayment program once your loan goes into repayment. Here's an example of a $10,000 Grad Plus loan repayment. This is the standard repayment model also for Grad Plus. And as you can see here, the Grad Plus interest rate is slightly higher. Because your student loans can substantially affect your overall credit and vice versa, it's worth the time to spend a few moments on financial literacy. Here are a few points to take into consideration. And you may have heard of the term FICO, which stands for Fair, Isaac, and Company. And this is the most common score type for your credit scores. So FICO does consider how you're paying on your accounts, how much money you currently owe, how long your accounts have been open, what different types of credit you use, how much credit you use compared to the amount of credit you have available, how often and how recently have you applied for credit. Just because you cut up a credit card and stop using it doesn't mean that it's still not going to appear as accessible credit for your credit score. So if you really do intend to stop using a particular credit card, you need to formally cancel it. Otherwise, it will show and reflect that this is additional credit that you could secure, which heightens your risk as a borrower, heightens you as a risk factor to the bank, and is reflected in your FICO score. FICO does not evaluate your age, race, religion, sex, marital status, occupation, salary, employment history, where you live, child family support obligations, rental agreements, and other student loans in deferment. If you are denied credit, you have a right to ask the lender for score reasons. And you should, because understanding these reasons can help you improve your FICO score over time. Improving your FICO score and repairing your credit history, you can do this. You can improve your credit behavior by making loan credit payments on time, reducing open lines of credit, especially newer credit, keeping your balances low, or even better, paying them in full monthly. You have a right and you can correct inaccurate information. I've done that myself. Keep your information updated and dispute mistakes. It's worth your time. You can improve, but you cannot repair poor credit. Bad credit usually stays with you for 10 years. So those credit repair services out there trying to get you to spend money with them are really a waste of your money. You can find out your total loan debt, your total student loan debt in detail by going to the National Student Loan Data System. Repayment usually begins 6 months after graduation. There are several different options you can look into for repayment. The standard repayment is your default. If you do nothing, that's what you'll go into. But now there are things like income-based repayment, pay-as-you-earn repayment, and income contingent repayment. And these are definitely options that you should look into. Here's some tips for repaying your student loans. Setting up payments automatically through your bank account, which should dramatically reduce the chances of being late or missing a check. Remember, the standard repayment period for student loans is 10 years. Use the National Student Loan Data System, which tracks all your federal loans, to keep track of them. Consider income-based repayment, which will help to cap your monthly payments at 15% of your discretionary income. Stay current on the law. The Project on Student Debt and the National Consumer Law Center's Student Loan Borrower Assistant Project have the latest and greatest on student loan developments. And if you end up in a dispute with your lender, there is something called the Federal Student Aid Ombudsman may be able to help you resolve your problem. So take advantage of that as well. For private loans, you could be in default as soon as you miss a payment. Private lenders' collection powers are not as strong, but this is still debt that you owe. If you default on either your private or your federal loan, and in the case of federal loans, they're usually considered delinquent after 9 months, it will affect your credit and could prevent you from securing a credit card, a mortgage, an apartment, or a job. So rather than missing payments, a deferment can be requested. This is a temporary suspension of payments if you re-enroll in school, which those of you on this phone may be in the process of already, you may already be re-enrolled or in the process of becoming re-enrolled, and then your loan would go into deferment. So it's for, deferments are for when you re-enroll in school, if you are unemployed, if you face economic hardship due to a disability, certain military service, or following active duty. Another option is forbearance. Forbearances are temporary postponements or reductions because of financial hardship. But remember, in either case, interest continues to accrue on those loans that are either have a deferment or forbearance. Income-driven plans are designed for those in repayment experiencing partial economic hardship and whose outstanding federal student loan debt is higher than their annual income or represents a significant portion of their annual income. This is something you must apply for, not only initially, but every year thereafter, to ensure that you qualify for the income-based repayment plan. So there is income-based repayment, IBR. Here's some, depending on the type of loan that you have and the time frame when you secured it. There is pay-as-you-earn. Payments are capped at 10% of discretionary income over 20 years. And income contingent repayment, which is a little more convoluted, but definitely pay-as-you-earn or income-based repayment are going to cap your monthly payments because it's going to be based on your income, not on the amount of money that you own. Oh, excuse me. Here's some examples of the monthly payments under income-driven repayment. Here is the AGI, the adjusted gross income. So depending on your income, annual income, this is what the payments would look like. And these are, believe me, are a lot more affordable than probably what it would be under standard repayment. Now, coupled with income-based repayment is something called public service loan forgiveness. Now, this was created in 2007 for students taking out federal loans. And the thought process here is those people going into public service are not going to make the big bucks like those in corporate America. But yet we really, really need people in public service. So what can we do to encourage them? Well, they came up with income-based repayment. So first, that's where your payment is smaller and more manageable. You still pay on that at least 10 years, but then this is where public service loan forgiveness comes into play. Because after 10 years, your loan is not paid off, there's still a balance, but if you've been working in public service that entire time, then your loan can be forgiven. This is very powerful. Our first folks that will be eligible for loan forgiveness will be in 2017. And you know, we hope that will continue to have these programs available for students who, obviously need to rely on federal loans to finance their education. Those that qualify for public service loan forgiveness are really anybody in the nonprofit sector. That could be obviously teachers. It could be people working in the federal government, in local government, in state government. Could be private schools. Really anybody in the public sector, or excuse me, the nonprofit sector. One disclaimer here is that if you do have your loan paid off, that could be considered income, and you would have to probably declare it. But you're still better off in that case than you would be if you had to continue to pay. Mental behavioral health clinicians can get up to $50,000 to repay student loans if they commit to 2 years working in an approved National Health Service Corps clinic, which these are normally located in high-need, underserved areas in the United States. The thing about this is that the payment or the repayment loan forgiveness is at the beginning of service, so the loans are paid down much more quickly than what you're dealing with income-based repayment and public service loan forgiveness. So this is definitely something to check out. Those of you becoming teachers or looking to become teachers, students may apply for the TEACH grant if they're enrolled in a state-approved teacher preparation program, which St. Mary's is, of course, and they agree to teach a high-need subject area like math, science, foreign language, or special education for 4 years in a low-income or low-performing school. This is, you can get up to $4,000 grant if you are making that service commitment. But if you do not fulfill the service commitment, then that $4,000 grant turns into an unsubsidized loan. So it's very important that you remember that. Unfortunately, this only our single subject credential students are eligible for this grant. The multiple subject credential students, the way this was written, because even though they do teach math, science, foreign language, it's not a subject that they teach exclusively, and therefore they are not eligible by that definition. It is an unfortunate thing, but it has to do with how the state chose to interpret. And then for highly qualified credentialed teachers who have a federal Stafford or direct loan and have been employed as a full-time teacher for 5 complete and consecutive academic years in a Title I school, and that normally is a low-performing or low-income school, you're eligible for between $5,000 and $17,000 in loan forgiveness. The eligible schools are listed in the annual directory of designated low-income schools for teacher cancellation or loan forgiveness benefits. The amount of money depends on whether you are teaching a high-need subject area and where you're teaching. For multiple subject students, elementary school, potential elementary school teachers, you would be eligible for $5,000 under this program. But somebody teaching special education in a Title I school, or math, science, or foreign language, you could be eligible for significantly more. There's also tax credits that you can take advantage of. There's a lifetime learning credit up to $2,000 per tax return for each year that you pay for college. Your modified adjusted gross income cannot exceed $63,000 for single tax filer, or $127,000 for those married and filing jointly. So that's the limit there. And also, you need to know that qualified expenses do not include insurance, medical expenses, room and board, transportation, or similar personal living or family expenses. So pretty much this goes against this credit for your tuition in your book. There is also something called the American opportunity tax credit. This is a much more limited. You can only take advantage of one credit or the other. This one is not going to apply to as many because it's really for only those that go straight out of their bachelor's program and into a graduate program in the same calendar year. Then they could potentially use this annual credit of $2,500 instead of the lifetime learning tax credit of $2,000. But it's an either-or proposition here. So those are just two options for tax credits. So just to summarize, develop a funding plan. Get organized and keep good records. You can see how, this is a fairly long period of time that you need to keep track of things. And so your records need to be good and easily found and easily, easier for you to substantiate. Develop or modify your budget as needed. It should be a living document, not something you make and then put away and don't look at it. If you need to modify it, then you should on a regular basis. Follow developments and changes in the law. I gave you a couple of websites to check that out. We need to make sure that we are aware of what bills that Congress are looking at, changes that they intend to make, because they do respond to the voter. And if you see that they are considering taking away certain programs, then you want your voice to be heard. And again, as I say, review your plan on a regular basis. So that's really the conclusion of my webinar. I know it's a lot of information, and I hope this has been helpful. This is my contact information. You're welcome to email me or call me if you have questions, or if you want to take the time right now to post a question, I can answer it for you as well as for everybody else that's on this call. So feel free to type in your questions now. I've also provided the contact information for the financial aid office, their email, and also their phone number. Generally speaking, you will, if you've done your FAFSA and referenced St. Mary's as your school of choice, then they will automatically process you for the direct loan of $20,500, and you will be notified about that award through your email account, and it should appear on Gale Express, which is the payment system here at St. Mary's. However, if you need more than that loan, then you will need to contact the financial aid office and your assigned counselor. You call them to find out who that is, to let them know that you want a Grad Plus loan as well, and whether or not you want living expenses included in that, what amount you'd like to have. Also, I mentioned the TEACH grant for aspiring teachers. If you want the TEACH grant, you need to work with the financial aid office on that as well, since that is a federal grant. So you need to make them aware that you want to apply for the TEACH grant, and also that you have been counseled by the School of Education on the ramifications and requirements of that program, which I've done here in this webinar. They just want to make sure that if you sign up for it, you know that you are committing to a service, to serving 4 years in a high need or low income school district. So those are just some other reminders for you. I don't seem to see any questions at this point. I'm going to pause here for a few minutes and see if anybody has any questions. Oh, one other thing is this has been recorded, so I will post it on the Graduate and Professional Studies website, and you can replay it there in case you want to go over anything that was unclear, or that you just like to review it again. And lastly, that you will receive an email from me tomorrow with a list of links that you can access to get more detail on the topics that I've covered here. And that is pretty much all that I have to contribute. Oh, here we do have a question. Let's see what this is. What are other solutions for graduate students when they can't get a Grad Plus loan? Is it possible to pay, So I would pursue the external scholarships websites that you saw there to see if you can line yourself up for a scholarship. That's really the only thing, and you could also consider a private loan, but those are generally based on credit worthiness as well. So, but it is worth a try. You are, if you are teaching math, science, or special education, remember you are eligible for the TEACH grant, and that is money up front, $4,000. If you're teaching in a low-income or low-performing school, special education is a high-need subject area, you could apply for the TEACH grant along with the direct loan. So that would give you another $4,000 up front. So that, again, as I just said, that needs to be worked out with the financial aid office. But you tell them that you that you want the direct loan and the TEACH grant. Is it possible to pay monthly and not get a loan? Yes. Good point. And I need to incorporate that into this presentation. The business office does have a payment plan. For spring and fall, they'll divide your payments into 3 separate payments for those terms, and for summer they divide it into two payments. I don't know if it's too late for summer. If you're already started in summer, you'll need to contact the business office directly on that. But certainly it's not too late to set that up for fall. So you could have, they'll divide into 3 equal payments over the fall term, and I think there's a $25 processing fee. So that is a good option to spread your payments over time. There's another one. Can St. Mary's incoming grad students apply for the unsubsidized loan? And how long does the process take, since classes will start for me July 7th? Like I said, ideally in a perfect world, 6 to 8 weeks. But if you can get your FAFSA done online, that's the only thing you need. Reference the St. Mary's code, which is 001302. Use your income taxes from 2014 to fill out the FAFSA as quickly as possible, indicating you will be a graduate student. And then if you do that, say tonight, for example, our financial aid office should have that in their hands by the end of the week. And then you can maybe contact them directly and see what you can do to move that along more quickly. You can also let the business office know that you've applied for financial aid and you're hoping to get it prior to your tuition being due. I don't know if you've already got a tuition bill, since I believe the bills went out for summer session, but you said you haven't started class yet. So I'm not sure about that. Again, work with the business office, work with the financial aid office, let them know, see you face to face and have a conversation. Is the TEACH grant for new teachers only? Yes, the TEACH grant is for new teachers only. Yes, it is for new teachers only, first-time teachers. And the last thing I just want to make clear, I am not with financial aid, I'm with graduate and professional studies, but we really feel strongly that we want to make sure that you have all the knowledge possible on this, because it is a big, it is an important decision. We want you to be able to avail yourself of all the opportunities that are out there. And so I consider my presentation and my advice first level, if you will, and the final word is always going to be coming from the financial aid office, because they are responsible for dispersing your financial aid. But hopefully this has been helpful for you this afternoon. Oh, another question, is it too late to apply for scholarships if we started this June? You would have been considered for a scholarship in the School of Education, if that's the program we're talking about for you, as you know, we have admission scholarships for them, and you would have been considered for those during the application process. So those have already been awarded. If you weren't contacted, then that is not an opportunity. But as a continuing student next spring, you can apply for one of our scholarships, and those will usually that website will usually go live after the first of the year, and the due date is usually the end of March. Just keep checking back with the School of Education and check out on the website to see when the website is available. It's an online scholarship application. And then if you're finishing, say if you're in a credential program and you're finishing in May, but are going to continue on in the summer with the master's program, then you could use those funds, if you were awarded a scholarship, to pay for your summer tuition. Okay, that is all the questions. If you think of anything else, don't be afraid to reach out, and I hope you all have a great remaining evening, and I hope that you do feel confident now that you can pay for your graduate studies without risking your financial security in the future.